Okay, so we are now live streaming on Facebook. So if you guys are on Facebook, go ahead and tune in. We are live. And so we're going to go ahead and just get started with introductions. So first of all, ladies, thank you all so much for joining Caribeña Creatives First Roundtable Series. Let's Unpack. This is a new series that we're trying to do via, obviously now, social distancing and via Zoom, where we're going to really start unpacking and talking about a lot of issues that are surrounding us in the industry that affect producers, directors, actors, anybody that's in the industry, and things that aren't really talked about as often, and we really need to talk about it, especially as creators of color. So I'm gonna go around and introduce everybody. So first off, introduce myself. I'm Marilyn Camacho. I am an actor, director, producer, and I'm also the founder of Caribeña Creatives. We are a new production company that is comprised of women creators and producers from the Caribbean diaspora, and we are aimed at creating content, mentorship, and viable opportunities to amplify projects from Caribbean storytellers. Joining us today, we also have Aida Rodriguez, Funny Aida on IG. She's a comedian, writer, producer, and actor whose current specials are streaming on Showtime, HBO, and Netflix. We also have Joy Donnell. Her Instagram is Do It in Public and C.I.M.E. Clearly. She is an LA-based producer, cultural strategist, and author of the popular book Beyond Brand, Master Your Power, Joy in Media to Live Your Legacy. She's also the founder of Super Joy Media and the co-founder of the Center for Intersectional Media and Entertainment, C.I.M.E. We also have Julia Carias-Linares. She's an award-winning actress, TV, film, and digital producer, real estate stager, interior designer, and businesswoman. She's the co-founder and CEO of Freedom Studios, a content and creative IP studio. And as a television executive, she has worked for 3 of A&E Television's network brands, which include Lifetime, A&E, and FYI. Julia was part of development and programming core team that successfully rebranded the biography channel to FYI into the #1 upscale entertainment network on ad-supported cable in 2015. And she was part of MIT, which stands for Multicultural Insight Team, which is a group dedicated to promoting multicultural inclusion that impacts the company's programming and overall culture. She sits on the executive board of directors for the 100 Hispanic Women of the Westchester chapter, New York Women in Film and Television, and she's also a member of the executive peer group for the Television Academy. Her expertise is in sourcing projects, developing talent, and securing intellectual properties. We also have Lynette Coll. Instagram is Lynette Coll 17. Lynette is a Marymount Manhattan trained actor, producer, and storyteller. She has worked in film, theater, and TV in New York, Puerto Rico, and Los Angeles. She is known for her work on All Rise, Worlds from Home, Chronopath, amongst others. Her most recent credits include former head of development and manager of acquisitions at Breaker, a blockchain entertainment studio, executive producer of David Lynch Presents, The Happy Worker, and development executive of Antarctica, the movie by Keith Bearden. Lynette consistently fights for more inclusion and diversity in front and behind the camera, and recently joined the Caribeña Creatives team to continue her work of discovering and elevating new and talented voices in our community. Last but not least, we have Nadine Velazquez. Nadine is an actor that has worked for over 20 years in Hollywood and recently has closed a deal at Showtime as a first-time writer, creator, and producer of her own semi-autobiographical comedy. Woohoo!
You said blurb, so I sent a small version.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said you said blurb. So
blurb.
I put 4 lines of my freaking bio. Like I'm hearing everybody's, I'm like, I only wrote 4 lines.
Okay. Yeah. The 4 lines
it's okay. It's okay. I was like, I'm gonna keep it real short and sweet. Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to talk about, I think what really sparked this whole convening was there was an LA Times article that came out about a week and a half ago. And what they did was they highlighted the creators of color, and they basically put in the headline that some creators fear that there's going to be, I guess, a lack of diversity in TV push because of COVID. And there was a lot of different responses from a couple of the people that they interviewed. And there was a lot of mixed reactions, I feel, from a lot of people of color, because I think that we've been singled out, you know, obviously within the article. And I feel that we're definitely in a place right now where everybody is scared. You know, nobody knows what exactly is going to be happening in the near future. So just going to go around and get initial thoughts on what you guys thought about the article. You can start with.
Who's first?
Aida.
Of course.
We'll kick it off with you, girl.
So, you know, I will say this. Every time I read an article that discusses the reality of marginalized people, be it in Hollywood or anywhere else, nothing ever surprises me when people say, this is going to affect us, because it always affects us. It's not like speaking from the perspective that the reality of it is that we're marginalized everywhere. Hollywood is not exempt from that. So when I read those things, of course, we're going to be affected by the lack of inclusion and diversity, because now they have an excuse. And a lot of times, all they need is an excuse. All they need is a reason, because, diversity and inclusion initiatives don't always result in action. They just fulfill quotas to say and to exhibit that they've been actually trying to make a change.
This is what, and this is in quote of what the article had said. So it says the coronavirus crisis has turned all of Hollywood upside down, and the hope for a return to even a small degree of normalcy remains uncertain. But one segment of the entertainment industry has been particularly shaken to its core. The circle of Black and Latino creators responsible for much of TV's freshest and most innovative content. The harsh reality that the virus is particularly lethal for Black and Latino segments of the population has prompted heightened concerns among some of TV's top talents and about their creative and personal futures. LA Times data analysis concluded that Blacks and Latinos under 50 are dying of the coronavirus at significantly greater rates than any other groups, including whites. So I think where I would want to say is this article presenting like an antiquated neo-colonial old paradigm and ideas, along with like fear tactics, right? We know that when you put fear out there, that really does affect people and how they receive it, and also the perception.
It's also operating from the belief that only Black and brown people watch Black and brown TV shows. Like, we don't appeal to the masses. So now that we're dying of COVID, the shows are really in trouble because other people don't watch us, which is not true.
Correct.
Yes, and you would think that, and you guys can chime in on this, you would think that during a certain time right now, right, where because our people are being the most affected by this, that you would think it's imperative that we do put our stories more on TV and we do show more nuanced storylines and characters. But there seems to be some type of pushback right now in Hollywood against trying to put our trauma out there. Joy, do you have any thoughts on this in particular?
When I read the article, I didn't take umbrage with the article existing or the people that were in it. Sure. To kind of echo some of what Aida said, like, marginalized people didn't marginalize themselves. And I'm not going to judge another marginalized person about how they cope through their marginalization. Just because you have a deal with Netflix or with ABC or Amazon or something else doesn't mean that you are now impervious to your marginalization even. Because one of the things that we know is that this is a systemic thing. And so really, like, when I read it, where I went was, why are they scared? Like, I don't think that it's illegitimate for them to be scared. There were a lot of things that they had to go through to even get to Kenya Barris status, right? Shonda Rhimes status. And part of what the obstacle has always been is that, is your story, is your specificity universal? And yes, all specificity is universal. The specificity is the universality, first of all. So we know this, okay. But when it came to this article and, the tone, like, I wasn't focused on that. For me, what it is an opening up to the larger conversation, which is that you can do as much in, unconscious bias training as you want. And it doesn't mean anything unless you address systemic bias.
That's right.
Unconscious bias training doesn't mean anything unless you address systemic bias. Unconscious bias training does not mean anything unless you address systemic bias. It is the systemic bias. And if we actually get to the nitty-gritty of Hollywood, Hollywood has never existed without policing bodies in spaces and places on screen.
Yep.
It started off with a production code. There were close to 30 years, 29 years of anti-miscegenation on screen from 1927 to 1956. And it never got course corrected in a real way. Still to this day, there are only 6 movies that have actually shown a white woman and a black man fall in love, have romance, and be together at the end of the movie. 95% of all the cinematic images that you have ever seen on screen were created by a white man. When you follow how media is owned, it all goes back to the same 6 white male chairmen. This is, I mean, I'm not making this up. You can Google it. You don't have to take my, my word for it. It's public domain. Okay. It's like, so this isn't, it's not like we don't know where the thing is, but the thing is that Hollywood doesn't seem to understand that it has never created without racial bias, restrictions around race, restrictions around gender, restrictions around gender identity, restrictions around everything. When it wasn't the production code, it was, basically race-based censorship. It was distribution bans. We have quotes from where there were theater owners that said, we're not even willing to show a movie with black and white people on the screen together unless the black people are depicted in a servile capacity. At one point, actual Nazis, not the ones that were in, Charlottesville in khakis and tiki torches, but actual Nazis, the Hitler Nazis, were getting on planes coming to Hollywood, telling the producers what they could and could not put into the movie, because Germany was the largest consumer of the Hollywood product next to the US. So they literally told the US, we don't want to see this. And we know how they felt about eugenics. So Hollywood has never existed without censorship. And the stories that they tell are the ones that they sell. And as my business partner, Dr. Nicole Hager, says, that means that the stories that they told are the ones that continue to be sold. And so Hollywood actually thinks, from the development to the C-suite to the board to everything, to distribution to everything, that there is only a certain amount of stories that they can sell, and there's a way they have to be shaped, and there's a way that they have to sell them.
Now, speaking of selling, I know that Lynette, you're in a lot of these meetings on the executive level, and so are you, Julia, as well. What are your thoughts as far as when it comes to packaging, the show? And the elements that, are mostly looked at with a really, really fine tooth, like what are the things that are coming up, right? What's the trend, right? What do we usually hear when you're in those rooms? Like, give us a bird's eye view into like what that process is like in your experience, obviously as both women of color, Latinas inside those rooms.
I mean, I don't know about you, Julia, but this is a fight that we have every day. They always tell you, like, if there's a project that we want to have more diversity because it calls for it, like if you make a sci-fi where the world is a creative world, where you can actually have people from everywhere, you always have to fight with them, because the number one thing that they always say is, if you bring Latino actors into the, you go, this Latinos, it's the ones that we want to choose. They always go, well, are they bankable? I don't know who they are. And if it's not true. If you go to a casting director like Carla Hu or like Yolanda Guillen or any of the actual casting directors that are out there that are of color, they will tell you that they are bankable. But that's the excuse they give you time and time again, that those people are not bankable. And it's because a lot of the people that are behind are white and they don't understand that world yet. It's our job to make them see that. And the other thing that I wanted to say was, there was a study in UCLA that they did it last year. And this is very powerful. they discover that people of color currently constitute nearly 40% of the US population. More to that, every year, it goes up a percentage, 0.5%. They think in decades, like in a couple of decades, people of color, the population, we will be the majority, not the minority. So how come we keep saying that people are not watching our stuff? That people, like we're Latinos, people of color are not bankable, when there's a lot of us in this industry. And when it comes to packaging, I mean, to me, it's always a fight of what stories are told. Subconsciously, we keep generating fear and stereotypical characters and stereotypical stories. It's always the same thing. We're always the victims, or we're always the prostitutes, or the gigolos, or the religious person, or we are, what else? The bad person. Subconsciously, that's what's ingrained in their brains of not only the executives, but also the people that watch our movies and our stories. So that's the other thing I wanted to piggyback on Joy's comment, that we are perpetuating fear and we are perpetuating the stereotypes, and it's up to us when we're in those rooms to fight. But sometimes I'm the only person of color in the room. So it's very hard to fight those fights. And we can, every day we can keep up bringing up the numbers, but somehow they don't believe the numbers, even though they're there. And I don't know your experience, Julia, but it is the truth. They always find an excuse to not put people of color. And when they do people of color, it's always the same people. Like we need to start discovering new people too. You know, there's always the same 5 Latinas or 10 Latinas. And I mean, I love them, but we always keep putting the same people and the same writers and the same showrunners when there's so many people, talented writers and talented producers, such as ourselves, that are fighting every day, and they probably don't know who I am or who Julia is. You know what I mean? It's like there's other people out there doing a lot, and we're not giving those people opportunities. The door is closed, and we need to keep on banging on them. And I'm like, Ava DuVernay used to say, if you keep on banging on that door, just create 5 other windows, because I don't know what the answer is, but the fight is there every day. And I don't know your, Julia, like what's your experience?
I definitely agree with you. I think that, again, just like yourself, I was, you know, the one Latina in the room, the one person of color in the room. And it's exhausting after a while going in there and saying, you know, trying to advocate for diversity. And it's the same thing, you know, but I think that at the end of the day, for them, it's about the dollars and cents, right? We're not viable enough. And part of that problem is that they keep hiring either white folks to tell our stories, and they get it wrong. And therefore our community doesn't always, listen, when I got to the network that I was working for, A&E, Devious Maids, you know, and I was excited because like Devious Maid, you know, and then I watched it and I was like, oh my God.
They're very deviant.
I remember.
I love that we could just laugh about it, right?
I am an immigrant, right? Who understands that immigrant experience, and I remember, you know, one of the storylines was so far off what the actual process is that it was so disappointing, you know. And even though they had some Latinas, at the end of the day, as much as you want to write the stories, once they get the cuts, guess what? A lot of that stuff gets cut out. And they come in with creative feedback, and whatever you put in there might get, you know, cut in the editing room, right? So it very frustrating. So I think that at the end of the day, part of it is they trying, at least I was working for an ad-supported cable company, and a lot of it was about the dollars. A lot of it was about the ratings, you know, and we're working with an antiquated system, the Nielsen, okay, that is so, I mean, like one box counts for how many, you know, viewers, and who is watching this, right? So you telling me that we're not watching, and when we might well be watching. So I think that it's, you know, it's frustrating. And then being part of the MIT team, one of our goals was to bring in producers that were young, fresh, you know, because you have all these remakes. I'm like, really? Like, seriously, I know for a fact that there's a lot of producers out there that I know that are super talented, that have fresh stories, and we keep telling the same story with different characters or with different, storylines. But they're so afraid to give new producers an opportunity to come in. And even when they do come into the room, unless you have a proven record, then they don't want to give you that opportunity. And you can't have a proven record if you're not given the opportunity.
Exactly.
So how do we do this, right? Frustrating.
Yeah. If I may add something that I found talking about the numbers, which is important. The University of Georgia made a study in 2019 about the buying power of the people of color. And I think it's important to say this now we're talking about selling and distribution and all that. They found out that Latinos are number one when it comes to the market, the buying power, with $1.5 trillion in all markets across the board, not just our industry.
That's huge.
Followed by the African American community. Their buying power is $1.3 trillion. Asian Americans have buying power is $986 billion. And last but not least, Native Americans, $114 billion buying power. With those numbers, I mean, who can tell us that? I mean, we have the buying power which means the mainstream market literally is all about diversity. Like, they cannot deny that anymore. It's in the numbers.
But I think it speaks to what was said earlier, that the people that are creating the narratives are not the people who reflect the culture. Correct. So they create these projects and then we don't receive them, and then they penalize us and say, see, nobody is watching. But we also have to hold our own people accountable, because I know from my own experiences with Latinos, when a lot of people ascend into fame, they go employ white writers, they get white producing partners, they get white executives to run their companies, and they try to assimilate into white culture, and then they become part of the very oppressive force that we keep complaining about, because once they make it, they don't feel like they owe it to us anyway. Right. We have this elite system. I always talk about Issa Rae, because Issa Rae is my hero. That young woman gets it. When she went to the Oscars and they asked her who was she there to see, she was like, I'm rooting for everybody Black. And, yes. And I was just like, that was the moment where I was like, that's what we don't have, because we have Black, we have brown, we have white, we have Peruvian, we have Puerto Rican, and we get into these
we don't have it yet. We're on our way.
We have to be on our way, because it's depending on it. Our future in this game is depending on it. And I'm optimistic with you, but I'm also realistic about what we're up against, because now that I sold the TV show and I'm writing it and I'm starring in it, the fight has begun. Right. And to see the advice that I get from other creators who are Latino, I'm like, what are you talking about? We were just fighting for this. You think I'm gonna forget it now? Mm-hmm. And that's what we need. We need to be reminded that this journey is not just about us. We don't have a collective mind when it comes to our stories. We don't support each other like we should.
I think that what you said was key, right? Is that once we get to that position, and I think Nadine, you and I spoke on that briefly, right? Was getting to that position, and what are you doing as somebody that's in power? Specifically calling out the Latinos, right? Because it's been shown that the Black community, y'all got it. Y'all got the formula. It worked. You guys pulled each other up. You counted on your leaders. You had people come together, band together. You all got together and created your own machine, right? Where now Hollywood is like, we want some of that. Give us some of that pie over there, right? So what is up with the Latinos, right? And this question always gets asked. I go to panels all the time, just like all of you guys do, right? Where we sit here and they talk, well, what's the problem with Latinos? Why can't Latinos band together, and get this going? I think that it really does start at the top, right? And we don't have enough executives of color. And we definitely don't have enough executives that are of Latino descent, to be able to greenlight a lot of these projects. and create a situation where it's kind of a machine, right? Like white Hollywood is allowed to fuck up time over and time over with bombs and bombs of shows that don't work. It don't work. Guess what? We got another one. But when it comes to a Latino show, right? It's like all the money is on that one. That one got to work, you know? And if it doesn't work, well, guess what, guys? We got an excuse to tell you guys that your stuff just doesn't work. And nobody's watching.
Well, if they stop making TV shows where the alarm clock is a fucking rooster, then maybe people that are Latin will watch the shows. But what they don't understand is millennials do not like to see themselves perpetuated as caricatures and stereotypes. These kids they're not doing what was done before. Mm-hmm. So and we have to be responsible for our storytelling, because a lot of times just to be in the room, we will tap dance and we'll be like, okay, so she can do this. Puerto Ricans can't play Puerto Ricans on television. Mm-hmm. On Jane the Virgin, they were from Venezuela. On One Day at a Time, they're from Cuba. Those are Lynette. I guess Yvonne Coll was Miss Puerto Rico. Yes. She was Miss Puerto Rico. And I think it's important for us to fight for, you know, the darker hues. Everybody, listen, I'm at the intersection of it all. But I just think that we have to start putting our money where our mouth is, because a lot of times I'll see these executives on these panels doing the talks and all this bullshit. But when it comes to execution, they go do the same thing that Hollywood has been doing. And Puerto Rico is a viable market. It is a people that is varied and glorious, and those stories deserve to be told.
And can I just tell you, because Yvonne is my cousin. The funniest thing is Yvonne, by the way, if you see her, she's an amazing talent, not just because it's my cousin. She's done every kind of character but Latino, with an accent for the longest time. She gets to her 70s and she gets to be famous doing her own accent, which she was like, they made me change my accent for the longest time. And all of a sudden in my 70s, I get to speak Spanish with my own accent. Like, how hilarious is that? And the other thing that she also said, she was in one set one time playing a Russian, doing, I don't know if you have ever seen this. And I didn't recognize Yvonne. She's my cousin. She's speaking gibberish. She sounded like a Russian. And she told me the story of how that went down and how when they found out she was Puerto Rican, they wanted to fire her from this show. And she had to fight so hard to prove that she could do a Russian, and it was gibberish. It was like you could not understand what she was saying or what she was doing. She was brilliant and funny, and you would never know that is Yvonne Coll. So it is just hilarious to me how we think we're going forward, but we keep going backwards for some weird reason.
Now, when it comes to, and I'm going to try to move this along. So the next thing we want to talk about, right, is dissecting and breaking down these barriers. We're talking about all these barriers that are coming up for us, right? And we cannot move forward in this conversation without talking about systemic racism in our country and how that has also infiltrated Hollywood, the industry, and also how they view us. I think that, you know, we are in a place right now, and you know, I feel like everybody here has kind of been shaken to their core with the situation that happened with George Floyd yesterday, and the police brutality that's happening to Black people across the country. And it just continues and continues. And this country is starting to show us time and time again that they do not care about us, right? So has that mentality also transferred into Hollywood and how they view us, and particularly with the Latinos? You know, they don't really care about our stories. You know, they want to continue to run the machine, business as usual, how they've been running it. Joy, I know that this is your area of expertise, so I'm gonna let you kick this one off. And Joy looks so tired. She's like, girl, I am done. Okay.
I have to say, like, looking at all of your faces is very healing for me right now, but I have been on the verge of tears.
Yes.
Even just saying that I'm on the verge of tears. It actually, for me, I mean, of course, this has been something that has been going on. I can, please bear with me while I talk through this.
No, please go ahead, sis. You got this.
I'm very much on the surface right now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm from Georgia originally, so I was already there in my mindset when I found out about Ahmaud Arbery. I grew up not far from Brunswick, right? And then I see what happened to Christian Cooper. And the way that Amy Cooper told him what she was going to do to him gave me PTSD to when someone used that exact same tone on me. And some sort of way, I'm still here, right? Thank goodness nothing horrible happened. And then to see what happens with George Floyd, basically within 24 hours of that happening in Central Park to Christian Cooper, and knowing that that was actually kind of what the intention was, right? Like what Amy Cooper was thinking was that what happened to George Floyd is what she could call up the police customer service to come do to Christian Cooper. It's kind of a modernized lynching, right?
Yep. That's exactly.
So I said all that to say this. You know, the thing about systemic stuff is that it's systemic. One of the reasons why I got with the business partners that I got with to do C.I.M.E, the Center for Intersectional Media and Entertainment, was because I was tired of talking about the water that we were drowning in and not actually talking about the thing that was trying to drown us. Right? There's this thing about this country. America is not unique in its problems. What's unique about America is the way that it refuses to address its own crap. Before America even existed as American, we know that, first of all, to even go about settling the country was problematic because it was genocide, and that's never actually been dealt with, right? But on top of that, there's a very real thing that happened in the 1600s called the Bacon's Rebellion. And it was when Virginia was still a colony, and people of all races and all classes got together to get rid of the governor of Virginia. They were tired of him. And so the governor of Virginia went back to Britain ashamed and was like, oh my God, look at what these fools got together and did to me. Do you want them to do that to you? We got to figure out how to basically quash this kind of stuff. So he came back to Virginia, militarized, and they went about rounding up everybody, the aristocrats that were in on it, the indentured servants, the slaves, the free Black people that were working the land, everybody that was in on it. And they rounded it up and they killed them or jailed them and used them as example. And then something really interesting happened, and that's what it has to do with this conversation right here. They actually systematically started putting race-based language into the laws and the legislations and the processes and the procedures. It was a strategy because they thought, okay, if you have these all these different types of people are able to ignore their bodies and get together. Well, the only way that we can keep this from happening again is to create this class divide. When I say that this issue of race and gender has been baked into every single institution and every single system of this country, it is the truth. And while I cannot speak to, the Latina experience, I would think that since you are an array of skin tones and hair textures and things like that, and this country has worked so hard to put blood quantums, actual real blood quantums on Blackness down to the 32nd. Only Blackness and Native Americanness had blood quantums on them to the 32nd. There was a name for your level of Blackness or your level of Indianness. That's an obsessive type of thought. And then we sit here in 2020 and we wonder why we can't get things together. And we wonder why we don't have the data that we need when we know the anecdotal aspects of everything, right? And we wonder why it's taking so long to build this and build that and be seen this way and be able to have a multitude of stories. It's because it's already baked in. And I know that I started off with that, but I can't emphasize it enough. It's baked in. It's baked into Hollywood. And there are people who would actually be allies. They don't even realize that they are in the mindset of the stuff that was already baked in, because they just were taught this is how you write a script. This is the kind of movie that you write to get made. If you want to get this romantic comedy made, it needs to be cast this way. And they didn't question it because they didn't have to live it differently. So they didn't think about the way the stories and narratives were being othered. And then once they see it, because I know I've had done these presentations in rooms full of people, and once they see it, sometimes there's a little cognitive dissonance, but then they can never unsee it. And they actually start crying a lot of times because they did not realize they were imprisoned by it too. It is something that everyone has inherited. Everyone has inherited. And so, no, you can't separate the mind from the body, right? If you do, stop existing. You can separate the body, the person, from the environment, because the body has to have an environment to exist inside of. And you cannot separate that environment's culture from the context. And so this is the context that we are trying to tell these stories inside of. And so until we actually start to see the systemic bias for what it really is and how it has infiltrated, and free ourselves as creators of color from the onus of it, we're going to keep spinning in circles, I think.
Nadine, do you have any thoughts on this, given the fact that you were just put through this? You've been put through this. You've been developing your show. You've been in those meetings, you've had to go back to the drawing board. Does any of this resonate with you as far as the process goes?
The process is the process. It's like, it's never going to be an easy process. It's just not. So my perspective on this is a little bit, I know how to remove myself emotionally from it so that I can maintain my vision of what I want to create. And I have since the beginning of my career. And granted, I talk very openly about trauma and the way the trauma has affected me personally in my life. My trauma is an emotional trauma, it's psychological trauma. We each have our own experiences. Someone has, trauma based on their gender, their race, whatever. Mine was specific to me. And so what I talk about is how my trauma has affected me in my process or my endurance or how my ability to stay focused. Like, I feel like that is the thing that I speak most about. So my perspective is always going to come from that place. As I hear this conversation, and Joy, thank you for your eloquent way of speaking about something so deep and so, something that's been going on since the beginning of time. And I'm going to make a point, I'm going to wrap this all up, but what I loved about the way you just expressed that is not just bringing in all of the facts, but then you had some heart into it, which made me hear you. Heart is where we have to operate from. If we're looking for a solution, that is the only place we get to change somebody's mind about who we are and what our story is. We all know about, we can talk here and do this every week and talk about what we already see and what we've already experienced. Like you said, we could spin on it forever. The solution, I really truly believe, is in tapping into our hearts. As cheesy as that sounds, it is the most profound and effective way to make real changes in the world. Aida, you said something, you said, and this is true. You said, you're optimistic. You said, but I'm also a realist. I am too. I am optimistic, not from a cute little place, but, and I'm not saying that you suggested that, but what came up for me was, I know that sometimes when I speak about things, that is the impression that is made about me. But if I could go into it a little bit deeper, it's like, and I'm not saying I'm these key examples, but Martin Luther King was not an optimist. He was a realist, you know, and even though he was assassinated, his effects live on like forever. We're forever changed because of Martin Luther King, because of Nelson Mandela, also not an optimist, a realist. Gandhi, the same thing. And that is the next level of consciousness that we have to come into if we are going to make permanent changes. It's not spiritual woo-woo. It's not, it's real. We are being called right now to look at what is happening in the world and tap into a deeper part of ourselves and be a stand for something so much greater. And it's scary because it's even scary for me to say this, because I don't want to be the one that's like, oh, she's the cute one with the pointy nose and you got the good hair. And that's why you got this and you got that. If you really looked at my life, I was my own greatest obstacle. I believed that I wasn't good enough. I let things happen to me. I believed that I was, because of my race or whatever. I mean, I remember being on My Name is Earl. I was on the job and I felt like I didn't belong. I completely was self-hating myself. I was hating myself. And I wasn't able to be the gift that I could have been, whatever. And I believe in God, like God placed me there. And I think that when we have this platform, and because we're connected to our spirituality, and because we're connected to something greater than what is happening, we get to tell our story from a very God-centered place. We get to sit in front of a room and dare to say who we are, what is happening, and connect with someone's heart who doesn't want to connect with your heart. So it's easier said than done, but I think it's what's going to be required of us. You know, Julia in your rooms, Lynette in your rooms, Aida in your rooms, like we're going to have to just detach from what we are so easily reacting to and let another greater part of us come through. And I really feel like, Marilyn, like this process and getting from my story developed to being sold, that's where I was operating from. And I remember one of the guys was telling me, one of the producers, he was like, you gotta do it like this. And Nadine, you gotta do it like this. And you gotta get this, and it has to feel like this. And I told him, I said, an earthquake can happen in that room. And in the middle of my meeting, and I still believe I'm going to sell this. Why? Because it's something inside of me that is bigger than me that's moving this. And when I was in the meetings, I was reaching for hearts. And, you know, I can see the result, and I don't believe that it was me. And so I want to continue to operate from that place. And any platform that I get into that asks me this opinion, yes, I can tell, we can have that other conversation, but then there's a bigger conversation that I'd like to introduce.
Well, to touch base on this, and I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here because I feel like we got to do that, right? And Aida, I don't know how far you are in your process as far as your show goes. Do you already have a showrunner attached?
Yeah, no. I sold my show. We've delivered a script. We have notes on Tuesday.
Is your showrunner white?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nadine, your showrunner.
One of my showrunners is white, and one of my showrunners is an Iranian woman that ran Dear White People.
Okay, so my question to both of you is, why did you feel the need to have to align yourself, or why did you pick a white showrunner for your show?
I didn't pick a. Well,
that's the other.
You know what's funny? Right? The thing about it is, this is the reality of the game. I'm with Joy. I agree with Joy. I believe this is a systemic ill. Racism is in the DNA of America. I love Nadine, and I'm a supporter of hers, and I surely wasn't trying to imply that you're not a realist. I believe in everyone's evolution and everyone's spiritual base. I feel it's very hard to appeal to a people spiritually who are not spiritually made up of what I'm made from, right? So you could go bark at the devil all day long from and be Jabril, but the truth of the matter is that this is very much about economics. Really, this is not, imagery is so important, right? All of it plays a part. So the way you keep people down is it comes from, you show them images of them being beneath, you show Black children or Puerto Rican women being drug dealers, blah, 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 that feeds it. Right? You keep them from going to good schools. You don't give them good education. You don't, boom, boom, boom. You keep them from being able to get loans so they can buy real estate, so they can own land. It's all interconnected, and it is a systemic ill. And that is what we need to address. That being said, if I didn't have my spiritual connection to my ancestors, my Chango, and everything that I believe in because of where I come from and what my grandmother gave me from Puerto Rico, that I do believe in God. I also believe in the saints. I believe in my ancestors. I carry them with me. I do my flowers. I do, because culturally I'm connected to that, and that's what keeps me going. I'll also have to deal with the reality that most shows on television are ran by white people.
Exactly.
This illusion that I'm a comedian. So every day I hear white people in comedy tell me they can't sell a TV show because they're not a person of color. They're like, oh, you can't even be a white man and sell a TV show anymore. Yet and still, the majority of all television shows are white people. The majority of television shows are being ran by white people. So how do we change that, right? We have to, like, Nadine has a show. I'm believing that show is going to get picked up, right? I'm believing my show is going to get picked up. I need Nadine's show to do well and get picked up, even if mine doesn't, because it is important for our collective, right? But should my show get picked up, I'm going to Donald Glover that bitch all the way to the bank. Everybody in that writer's room is going to be a reflection of the people in that TV show. And if I can't do that, then I don't want it. You know why? Because the story is going to fail. And that my showrunner, I'm a co-writer.
It's authenticity.
They're not going to connect with the people. My showrunners and we wrote the script together. It wasn't they wrote a script and I went in and punched it up. I rewrote half that shit, and I did a page 1 rewrite, and I was like, nah, we don't talk like that. We don't do that. I'm asking them, is that what you really think about us? Like what made you say that about a Puerto Rican lady? Like, what Puerto Rican lady you met that did this? Because Puerto Rican ladies are lawyers and doctors and blah, 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 and they can be everything on the spectrum. So I fight for the spectrum daily. But when I tell you about me choosing a showrunner, giving me the operating from this lofty idea that I had the choice is really where we fail, because people will say, well, you went and got a white showrunner. Right. Show me the Latin showrunners that are going to walk into a network with me and sell a show. Half of the Latino showrunners don't want to mess with me because I'm too Black for them. Right? I'm too black for them.
Or not enough of them, because the experience, and I think that I can see where you're going, Nadine, with, the power of the love and the heart. Aida, I hear you, is about economics. At the end of the day, is it going to produce? Is it going to make money? Are the advertisers going to be happy? And I got to tell you, ladies, I honestly am really, really excited about technology, because I have worked at the network level and I want to do my stuff digitally. Okay. Why? Because I have seen how our stuff is changed. The notes that come in from the scripts to once you shoot it, to, in the editing room, the notes, I've been there, I've seen it. And I think that the way I'm going to talk about solutions. I think it's utilizing the technology that we have. Honestly, to be quite honest with you, I could care less. My approach now is I could care less about being in Hollywood. I want to create content that's going to be watched across globally, and I'm not going to wait around for Hollywood to do it. I want to utilize technology. I want it this way. I have the creative control. I'm able to bring obviously people who are experienced or are talented, that can can get the work done. And I think it's also about understanding that it's a business. I think that as creatives sometimes,
I'm gonna pause you for 1 second. I don't need to be rude. So our IG live, it's gonna kick us out, guys. So for those of
you mean Facebook?
No, IG kicks you out after about an hour. So just know that if it happens to go off for those of you that are watching on IG, we will log back in. So please come back into the room so that we'll be continuing the discussion. Just putting it out there because it'll probably be going off any minute now. So sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, Julia. Please continue.
It's okay. Should I go or should I wait?
No, keep talking.
No, keep talking.
So I think
our Facebook Live is still going. So
okay. So I think that it is about us, you know how you said, Aida, about holding ourselves accountable. I think it's about us understanding the business of it, because Hollywood is a business just like any other business. I know many of us have watched Shark Tank, right? We want to come in with the numbers, statistics, like who is our audience? Who is our buyer?
Correct.
You know, be able to create compelling stories that are going to resonate and are going to be authentic. But also understanding the business of it, because at the end of the day, I know that I want to be able to create jobs. I want to be able to make this continue this. And the only way that continues is if it's a successful business. And I think that's extremely important. I know that in my early, career as a young producer, as a young artist, I was so excited about creating the content that I would often forget about the marketing, the distribution, and only raised enough money to produce it. And then what? And then what? I show it to my friends, I show it to my family, and then nothing else happens. So I think that we need to be able to educate ourselves. And I know that sometimes it's hard, right? Because how do we do that if we're not invited into the room and to the table? So research the people that you are excited about and the content that what are they doing that you don't know. And I think that that's going to be very, very important as we continue to tell our stories.
But I think it's important also, for what you say, the authorship of our stories, right? Because when we tell our stories, it's storytelling. When they tell our stories, it tends to be exploitation. Right. And if you get an opportunity to do it, then you can see that there are results. Lynette, you and I were part of that group, and you saw Asian people who were very underrepresented in media made a collective decision about Crazy Rich Asians. And they did it because they were organized and they targeted all Asian people who were influential, not just people in the entertainment business. They created a model with it. What's it called? The Golden House?
Gold House.
Gold House. And so it's not that I'm with Joy on this. I don't engage in respectability politics. I am so tired of people of color being blamed for their own oppression. You set up a system that doesn't work, and then you throw them out into the pit, and then you blame them for burning. And that is what's been happening. It is not because we don't understand the business model. It's not because we don't understand marketing. It's not because we don't understand ads. It's because we don't have control of our own storytelling. And then they penalize us for the stories not doing well when they tell our stories. Because everybody cringed on here when they said devious maids. And I love those women. Those are my sisters.
I know.
And I'll support them. You know what I mean? Everybody was like, it was cringe, right? Because it was the sexualization of Latinas.
And still made.
Right?
Right. And maids.
I wanted to bring two things that Julia was saying. I do agree that technology is kind of our savior in a way. They talking about Aida and like showrunners and all those things. It's also up to us when we are in a room. When we are fortunate enough to be in a room to educate those people. I'm not going to name the show or the network, but I was part of the development of a show that was run by a Latino who had two executives, top executives were two women. One was of color, like an African-American. The other one was white, bless you. And they were trying to do something very different, which was bring us in a network where everything is in English, bring it all in Spanish. The script is written in Spanish, but the executive did not know a leak of Spanish. So they have to have two scripts, one in Spanish and one in English for the executives. It's a comedy. when you do a comedy in Spanish, the jokes are not going to land the same way when it is in English. So all these people are in this room. All Latino actors are acting out of their minds in Spanish, and we are all laughing. The people that know Spanish are laughing way before the executives are laughing. Then they laugh after that. And the notes they gave you at the end of this whole thing made no sense and that's why I came in, because they needed authenticity and they needed somebody in that room that spoke Spanish. But it was up to me to fight the fight of what was wrong, because their notes were completely topsy-turvy and wrong because they didn't understand Spanish. So it's up to us when we're in those rooms to fight the fight and not let go of it and try to fight for Aida, try to fight for Nadine, and try to fight for all those people and bring to the light that, it's fine that you guys have the power, but there's other people that can also help develop these things. And, go ahead, Joy.
So if I may, I just had to go ding, ding, ding. Okay. Because like for me, as I listened to what everybody said, this is the thing, like what everyone has said is true for them, right? Like it is systemic. You have to recognize the system that you are working within. But you also, like Nadine said, you got to believe that you belong in the room.
Exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. It's like you've got to, part of the work that you have to do as a creator and as an artist is that you've got to not wait for them to tell you you are enough.
That's right.
Like one of the things I realized a long time ago was that I was already overqualified because mediocrity had never been an option for me. Mm-hmm. So I had walked into the room already being exceptional. Right. It's like, so I was the only thing in the room that looked like me. So obviously I had done some extra stuff to get there. So you have to also believe that you are enough and supposed to be in the room, but don't just walk in there with just the belief, walk in there with the data. And you don't have to sit there and just guess what the data is. Annenberg Center has data. Gita Davis Institute has some data. There's so
UCLA has data, USC.
Yeah. There's so much data, right? Participant media has data. There's so much data that you can use. So go in there knowing that you are enough, that you deserve to be there, that your specificity is the universality. Put that heart into it, but also give that data with that soul.
Well, speaking of data, speaking of data, Lynette, I know that you were going to come through with some statistics and some numbers.
Wait, can I answer something real quick? Because you asked Aida, and I have a response about why I chose a white.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Because I did go to a lot of Latinos with my show, and I got
nothing. This is I know your story, but I feel like it's important for other people to know that, right? Because I know your journey. I know what you went through, Nadine. But
so what I want to say,
I'm asking that hard question because I know people are thinking of it. No,
and I get it. Look, I went to a meeting. Y'all know the same people. I'm not going to name them. It was another initiative to bring Latino stories together. A new one. The mayor was there. The lights, the cameras, the same characters were there. And I don't even know how I ended up there. Somebody said, come to this event. I thought it was a breakfast. It was a brunch.
It was a photo op, girl. It was a photo op.
I didn't get invited.
That's what it was, girl.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I'm seeing the same faces that we see. And they're like, because we have to tell our stories. Because our stories have to come from us. And I'm like, so why don't you merge with the people who are already, the 25 other initiatives that are already trying this? Why a new one? Why not bring them in and ask them what they've been doing? And really, if you're really about that, why aren't they here? And then I wanted to be like, I don't believe you. That's exactly what I'm like, but I can't say that yet. Maybe in a couple of years, if the show goes, whatever, I could be like, I don't believe you. Can you please expand on that and how you're really gonna help? But my point is that I'm with you, Aida. I'm with all of you in that it is up to us. And that's why I say it hasn't happened yet, but slowly but surely we're going to. And if this is truly our intention and we're creating a consciousness and a community and a tribe that is like-minded, it's a matter of time before we start to do that. And I think that the reason why these same characters have played it safe is because they're scared.
Yes, they are.
They're just scared. And I'm not saying just scared, forgive them. It's like, but now a new group is coming. You know, you sold a show, I sold a show. And we're not A-listers. That's new. That's an accomplishment. That's a triumph.
That's right.
We get
to. We were texting each other while we were doing it.
Yeah. So whether or not mine goes or whatever, we'll get in that room again. We'll get to do it again. And maybe this time, like we're not a fortune teller. Like just because you have, you know, you're connected to your purpose doesn't mean it's gonna happen easily. You know, it just means that for me, at least, it's like confirmation that the way that I'm looking at it is lined up. So it gives me more energy and like excitement to talk about it with confidence and to enroll other people into the vision, you know, and that we could be like this new voice for our people, you know, and not just our people, Puerto Rican, but like our people of color. Like,
you really could do that. You said something, Nadine. You said that you went to the Latino showrunners.
Yeah.
You went to the Latinos. ¿Y qué pasó? What happened?
Wait, when you say zero, what does that mean?
I'm like, girl,
and they said, no,
honestly, no, but you know, that sounds like a great idea. Wow, that sounds amazing. Are you available? I'm not available right now. I'm not available. I know that sounds amazing. No, not available right now. Okay, this is how we're gonna do it. And then I say, okay, and then I have this power player. Like literally, I finally tagged in with one Latino, and I was like, okay. My executive producer is Will Smith. Will Smith is coming in. Oh, no. Why?
Oh, why?
Why? Oh, no, what I heard about him on set. And he was like this and he was like that. I was like, oh my God, we're going to go there about what you heard? Like this isn't even, you're not even open-minded to like us coming together to create something bigger. It's not like he was so narrow-minded about how it was supposed to go. And I was like, we're given a feast right now. Like, let's take this and create something from here. No.
I want to say this. Rami is a friend of mine. Rami's a comedian who sold the show. He won a Golden Globe. One thing that Rami did that I thought was great was he hired this woman who's a doctor at UCLA. She's a woman who is a doctor of Palestinian studies, and brought her on his show as a consultant to make sure that the stories were sensitive to the Muslim community, to make sure that they were well within, you know, the proper bounds in the storytelling when it came to their community. And I am, there's a woman at UCLA who's Mexican who specializes in Latino studies, who I want to bring aboard my show, and also a Black woman, because my show talks about me as a Puerto Rican woman with 2 Black children. And I think it's important for us to seek the specialists in our when we're doing stuff, because a lot of times we think we are, we just don't understand the way the world is moving in this moment. Your show can get canceled immediately now if you do the wrong thing. That's right. I think that we have a responsibility to make sure that our storytelling is in line with and respect and dignity of our people. And so I just wanted to say that because I thought that I was very impressed with Rami. You know, he was like, I'm a comedian and I might not get this right all the time. So I have Maytha coming in, and Maytha's going to make sure that when we tell these stories about Muslims, that we don't do a disservice to our Muslim community.
So, by the way, not all is gloom and doom, but because we're talking about how everything is so horrible. I have to say that there are some things changing. I mean, and I'm feeling this myself. There's producers and companies that are coming to me for authenticity when it comes to Egypt. You were saying, Aida, how like, I can't tell a story because they're white. They are starting to understand that they need more authenticity in stories, and they're starting to approach people. There are also companies coming up like Game Changers, Effie Brown, you know, that are actually just specializing in content that is people of color, disabilities, LGBTQ, like everything but white. And if there is a white story, they're trying not to make the white people the heroes, and also changing the narrative into, you know, stories that are more elevated, that are not your usual stereotypical Latino or Black stories about slavery or about crossing the border, which they are important, of course, but there are companies out there that are literally with, and by the way, white people putting money in this company. So there is change that is happening, and it is because we're having these conversations, because we're actually speaking out, like up, and also audiences are not stupid anymore. You know, we can see that right now with everything that's happening. We were talking about George and Ahmad. Like, people are actually rallying out and speaking out, like not just our industry, but people out there. So not all is like lost. There's like change. And I think, you know, on that positive note, there are really cool stuff happening too.
I don't think the ancestors took all those ass whoopings for us to go back.
Oh, no.
Okay. I mean,
I'm gonna have to borrow that for my set.
Okay, like, and I really don't think that backward is going to happen, because I mean, Aida, you know, you talked about millennials, but also Gen Z.
Yes.
Okay? Gen Z is especially over it. Yeah. And they have already shown that if they don't see the kind of entertainment that they're looking for, they don't see themselves reflected back, they'll just go make their own stuff and watch it on YouTube. They don't care. Right. So the thing is that, you know, it is economic ultimately, and you know, Hollywood is aware of the fact that it's got to shift with the times, and this is the way that the times are shifting. And is like, yes, there are great initiatives popping up. Like I said, there's also too a lot of data. There is actually, you know, Gina Davis, you know, to put together a report that actually showed that the family films that starred a, you know, diverse lead actually out-earned films that starred a white lead. This is public information. Like, these are things that are accessible. And, you know, I needed to speak to, you know, what you were saying about, you know, the collaborating with experts. Like, you actually touched on the heart of exactly the work that I'm endeavoring to do, because we have a 5A approach where we are aligning with the artists, the academics that have the data, the activists that have been on the ground and know a lot of times the anecdotal stuff before anyone has known to even do data on it, right? It's like, so they can help inform the academics about where pain points are, or progress is that has gone ignored, was kind of slipping under the radar. Allies within the industry who are ready to help foster in the next generation, as well as people who are in the mezzanine positions, and the audiences, which is all of us. And that is, you know, a mentality that I encourage a lot of artists to think around, that you don't have to be an island with this, you know, build community. Reach out like Rami did, find people that can help you with that storytelling as well. And I mean, like, there are even, you know, like other institutes that are focusing on this, like the Norman Lear Institute. There's so much going on. The thing is that people are aware. And if you actually use some keywords and you start looking for what you need, you might be able to find it, or find something close to it, and reach out to someone and get some feedback on, oh, you know what, no, don't go here, you actually need to go over there. So yes, like, be positive. There's a lot of crap, you know, like, and there's still a lot of pain, but this is a new frontier. And the thing is that no one knows what things are going to look like coming out of COVID.
Nope. I think that's really like what you're saying, right? We don't know, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But I feel like right now we're in a very special time, right? We're in a really special time right now because, you know, everybody is in this position of where we don't know where things are going to go. And this is an opportunity for creators to really step out, for people to really start getting creative, working together, and creating that content that we so yearn to see, you know. I think from a perspective of, you know, and somebody was making comments, I'm also trying to be wary of like the comments and the questions that are coming through on IG and on also our Facebook Live. So we actually had somebody that said, well, and I want to now switch over. We've been talking about the corporate side, right? Let's talk about the creative side, right? I know that everybody here is a creator, is an artist at their core. So let's say for the actors that are out there, you know, somebody said, well, you know, so Hollywood doesn't make Latino stars. They don't make stars unless they're bankable, right? And what is that? What is that really? You know, when we're talking about being bankable, you know, because to this day, you know, a Latina has never won an Oscar for Best Actress, right? That still hasn't happened, right? And you see where they place us at these award shows. They put us in the back, y'all, okay? They don't put us in the front.
By the bathroom.
Right.
Next to the garbage can.
Right.
Over there.
And I think that, as you know, because we've been in this industry, we place so much value, right, on these award shows, on these accolades, right? And I think we're in a place now where it's time to switch that, right? Where we no longer give that power. We no longer give that value, right? Because it's old Hollywood, it's old mentality, right? And we see that, and we can see every single year in the award shows that they put out there, we see who's getting the awards, you know, and it's the numbers don't lie, the faces don't lie, the categories and the people that are nominated in those categories don't lie. So
I don't know if it's more insulting to get an Oscar for perpetuating a stereotype or not being acknowledged at all. I sit down sometimes and I think, you know, when I heard Viola Davis, who's one of the most incredible actors that graced this planet, say that she regretted doing The Help, I was like, yo, like, do you understand like what that must do to somebody's psyche to feel regret because of the guilt or the responsibility or whatever what she was expressing was that there was some shame and guilt associated with that. And I was just like, I don't know what's worse, because I had a conversation with Salma Hayek and she told me that she felt like Penelope Cruz should have an Oscar because she thinks Penelope Cruz is a great actor. And I said, I thought you should have an Oscar because you did a great job in Frida. Yeah. And she said that after she did Frida, she still couldn't get the roles.
Wow.
Because they don't write it they don't write for us. It's people like you that are writing those shows. Nadine is writing those shows, but they don't keep us in mind. And when they do, is the stereotypical characters over and over. And also, what about age? If you're not 19 or 20, you're like, forget about it. You should have been famous by now. So sorry. It's like, I mean, there is a problem in our industry, how they view us with age.
And the thing is that we can't be bankable, right? If we're not given those opportunities.
Exactly.
So you can't throw that in our face if we're not given those opportunities, you know? I feel like a big part of why I started Caribeñas was, first off, I didn't feel like I had that sense of community. I didn't feel like I had my tribe here, right? When it came to the people of the Caribbean diaspora. And I felt like there wasn't anything there for me here when I moved here. And I've been here 5 years, you know, and I come from Chicago, which I know some of you guys come from big cities, and you know how it is. It's like, it's so much more diversity. And it's also, I feel too, a big part of it is because LA is just so spread apart, right? It's just the way that the city is laid out, you know, but when you come here and you feel that you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way in order to get those roles. And then you do it, right? You do it and it does work. You start getting those roles because you straightened out your hair, you know, because you went in there and you appeased the casting director or whoever the people are in power with a neutral accent, right? Because for whatever reason, they don't want to hear a Caribbean accent, you know, when it comes to Latinos in Hollywood, right? They don't want to hear it, you know, in a lot of these rooms, you know, but I feel like, again, this plays a role in the psyche of actresses and actors, male and female, and what they have to go through in this journey. So from an artistic level, it is a form of oppression. You know, and being in the room with all these Caribbean women when I started the company and hearing everybody's stories, so many of the same stories, you know, I felt like I had to straighten out my hair, you know, in order to get roles here. And I did, and I booked them. And then after a while, I said, I'm damaging my hair. My curls ain't coming back. I got to fix this, right? So I go through this whole hair restoration process for 6 months to try to get back my natural curl. Then I get new headshots and we put it out there to the world and nobody's calling me in, right? And then your reps or whoever's managing you says, well, you know, they can't flat out tell you, well, it's not marketable. It's not a marketable look. You know, they can't tell you that. But in so many words, you feel these things, right? And there's a lot of colorism, you know, there's racism and there's colorism that especially happens in the Latino community. And I think that is something that also needs to be addressed. And it's something that I feel, again, coming from a perspective of saying casting, right? Casting directors have a lot of power. You have the producers who are behind the projects, but casting directors have a lot of power. So I think too, it's like this is a bigger discussion where and of course we will probably have another roundtable on it at some point, But when we do talk about racism, there's also colorism, and I feel that that's a big issue right now, and I feel like we really deal with that, especially in the Latino communities, and especially within our communities of the Caribbean because of our history, being colonized, and how that has played into how we view ourselves and how others view us. So, going into solutions, right? We're talking about what are the solutions, I feel like we there's a lot of options. We, like you were saying, Julia, we have the digital realm now, right? Which is a beautiful place, right? Because we can create content, we can put it out there, we can start creating our own, I guess you can say our own sort of machine, right? But I think at the core of this, it's always about the quality, right? It's about the quality of the work and holding ourselves to a higher standard when it comes to putting out our stories, But yeah, so I any other chiming in from any of you as far as what are viable solutions to these problems that we're dealing with right now?
I'm writing the colorism. Go.
No, go. I'll go. I was going to say that we were talking about initiatives that Jasmine Espada hates that word, initiatives, and when there's workshops and there's labs and there's all this stuff. I think the problem with those things, and they're great and they're popping out, I think one of the solutions in that realm is when you go into these labs, when you go into these workshops, whether it's NBC, CBS, HBO, Netflix, whichever it is, shadowing a director, all these things that are out there so that they can say that diversity is happening in these places. The thing that to me is missing is after you go through those labs, they should be a way for those people that went through that to get employment. They don't guarantee you employment. And sometimes people go through these systems and go through all these labs and nothing happens. And it happens time and time again. Out of like 100, maybe one gets a job or maybe none. So I feel that there has to be something in the system that holds accountable the networks and all these people that are making initiatives, not to just tokenize us and see, we're doing diversity here, but start employing our people to be in your show, in as a showrunner, or even in the room. Start with I don't know, the PA in a writer's room. I have no idea what you give them as a job, but do something like that. And I feel like that's needed in an industry as a solution, one of the many solutions.
Yeah. One of the things that Tiffany told me when Tiffany gave me my special, because she gave me a special, was when she formed her production company, her executive is a Black woman. And she said, when you form your company, you go get a brown woman to run your company. She was like, you employ people who look like you.
Exactly.
And make them the executives, because we always think white is right, and then we'll go and then those decisions start. I'm going to say, in terms of where I feel like solution is for me, I'm focusing heavily on the storytelling and making sure that I tell the stories specifically about my journey as a Puerto Rican. I'm half Dominican, but I didn't grow up knowing I was Dominican. So I grew up really Puerto Rican, but my pilot is going straight for the jugular. It's like we go in and talking about those issues, because I think that through the storytelling and the representation, you are able to shift something. I always reference Atlanta, because I think what Atlanta did was they didn't reinvent the wheel. Like, they weren't like, oh, look, Black people are. They were like, these are people who happen to be Black, and these are their stories.
Exactly.
It's not always like, and so I think that when it comes to Latinos, I don't know. I don't know about you, Nadine, but I'm 5'10". So I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a room and people have said to me, can you do the Sofia Vergara? And I was like, I can't do, so she's taken, she's Colombian. I don't speak like that. I was just like, I don't know what that is. I went in for a very popular show, and who I can't shit on publicly, But the casting director, when I did my audition, said, "Can you Dominican it up?"
Oh, Jesus.
And I had hit my point that day. So I was like, "Can you show me what that looks like?" And she was like, "Excuse me?" I said, I'm Puerto Rican, so I don't know what Dominican it up is, but can you show me what Dominican it up is so I can do it? And she was like, well, I mean, I just, it's acting, and I left. I was like, I told my agent, I was like, this could be a problem. This is problematic. But so because I remember those things, I just said, when I sit down and I write, I'm going to keep my Puerto Ricans, my Dominicans on my TV show as human beings first.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell the stories about us because for some reason, I always say this, we're not llamas. When people are like, what do Latinos do on Christmas? I'm like, we're people. We're people. We're just people.
What fail to understand is that we are the general population, right? We are the American general population. And there is no need to try to cater to us specifically, to try to market to us specifically. You market to us like you market to everybody else. Black people and Latino people, we do not want to be spoon-fed our content. You don't need to sit there and it's as simple as just putting us in the roles. You write the stories, make them how you would normally make a story, right? All the shows that are on Netflix, all the shows that are on Amazon, the one thing they could have easily done, right, which they're not doing, which is why we just have to cast ourselves, put ourselves in those roles, and that's it. And I think that's the one thing that goes over Hollywood's and executives' heads. Like it just goes over. It's just like, you guys don't understand that we are the general population, and we're gonna be the biggest population within 5 years?
2 decades, they say like a couple of decades, which is not that far away.
Right, in a couple of years, right? We're already on our way to being the majority, So why is it that you guys feel like we're like this little niche that you have to continue to try to spoon feed and try to figure out that there's like some trying to reach us, And I think that's another conversation, right? That's a conversation that needs to happen in some of these executive rooms, is really breaking it down for them to help them understand you don't need to market to us.
I also think that you have to inspire that.
Yeah.
People aren't just going to listen to complaining and you being mad about it. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying when I talk to other actors, that's generally the point of view. And it's like, okay, then inspire something. Like that's the only way you get to change rigid, old, antiquated minds.
Mm-hmm.
And also where you can just go ahead and do it and then use it as a case study or use other people's case studies. Like I work with a lot of ad agencies. I have for a long time, actually, and I usually come in and I do either brand strategy or cultural strategy. And I remember when Myra Brockett-Keel did a movie called Jumping the Broom, and it made a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you how it made a ton of money. Because Jumping the Broom decided to market the movie differently than a Black movie about, or movies, starring Black actors who are getting married. So a Black wedding movie would have normally been marketed. So it was the same year that Prince William got married. Okay. And what they did was they actually piggybacked on all of the royal wedding marketing. So as TLC was going to be airing the royal wedding, they piggybacked on that. They went to people like T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteen, and they went through the interfaith-based, the marketing, and they talked to all those different congregations about the movie. And so it was a love story, it was a romance story, it was a wedding story. They didn't do what would have normally been done, which said it would just been, ads on BET during 106 in Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like on VH1 during Basketball Wives or something like that. Okay, here's an ad for Jumping the Broom. No, they took a complete, non-conventional route for some reason, but actually perfectly logical route, and made a ton of money that they were not even expecting the movie to make. is a case study. It goes to show the old adage of advertising is that you market like to like, right? So, okay, it's starring some Latinas, so let's just, only have it on the airing during Devious Maids, and this is where we place the ad. Because again, they're thinking, okay, like to like. But something like Jumping, no, they could go ahead and do a broad spectrum of marketing. And everybody came out to see that movie. Just like Fast and the Furious, which was one of the things before Black Panther came along that blew Hollywood's mind for some reason. Oh my God, we can't believe it. Like everybody went to go see Fast and the Furious. Well, yeah, look at the cast. Yeah. Okay. They had everybody up in the movie. So something for everyone. They were interested in seeing all of these different characters play together on screen. So yeah, they went to go see it, even though it was Fast and the Furious number 18 million. They still went to go see it, and sometimes 3-4 times, right? The Black Panther, they oh no, that's never going to work. Nothing like that ever going to work. It makes $1 billion. Oh my God, bring us all Black Panther scripts now.
Same with Get Out, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, so like they pay attention, and the case studies are there. Use the data. Use the data. When other people before you have gone ahead and paved a way, made a little clearing in the forest, use it. Use it. It's there for you to use and flourish the way that you can, right? It's like, and this is what I'm saying, like find the data. Y'all don't just go into the room and just pitch. Like, yes, you need a great pitch, but a great pitch is backed up by numbers and figures and data that drives them to an emotional, decision. And ultimately, like I know this sounds like, oh, well, they're making a decision, but really all the decisions are emotion-based. If you damage the emotional centers of the brain, people have a hard time making decisions. That's a neurological fact. Okay. So that goes to show that decisions are rooted in emotion. And part of how you trigger that emotion is with numbers that show them they're going to make money.
Which is what I was saying about the power of the buying power that we have.
Yes, which was essentially what, $3 trillion we had?
It was $1.5 trillion that Latino have.
Just a Latino. But you got all people of color together.
African American. Yeah, exactly. You got Latinos, then the Black African American, the Asian community, and the Native American community are the most powerful buying market in the U.S. right now. So you cannot tell us that diversity doesn't work, because look at the numbers again. Yeah.
I'm taking notes, so I'm not ignoring you. I'm just listening.
Joy, we're gonna have to talk after this Zoom.
I'm going to give just the numbers of, like, we're talking about how we are, the 40% of the population is people of color, and how we are going to be the majority. We're talking about the buying powers.
That's
right.
We are mainstream.
We are mainstream. We already, I mean, for sure. We're talking about how we are going to become the majority at some point in life. But yet, if you go, we're talking about numbers. If people want to check this out, you can check out the UCLA. UCLA did a study last year on diversity in 2019. USC and the Annenberg and Nalip did another one. You can look it up. That was in 2017. And then you have the University of Georgia, if you want to find all those numbers, so that you can empower yourself next time you're in one of those rooms and they tell you, no, but. But this is what's scary to me. Like, knowing all these things, still, white actors make 77% of the roles in the top 200 theatrical films in 2017. With minorities in the leading film roles remaining under 20% between 2011 and 2017. Now, Latinos make up for 5.2% of those roles in movies. And then less than 10% is made up by Black actors and Asian actors. So even though we have the buying power, and even though we're doing all these things, the numbers are really low. And if we talk about Latina directors, one Latina in 2017, one was a director out of 1,335 directors, 1 woman. So there's a lot of work to be done for sure.
Who's the director? What's her name?
I can look it up because they didn't put her name, but they did say there was only 1 Latina director. And there's also 3%. That was the Annenberg and the USC that came up with that number. 3% of producers, 3% are like producers of color. Mm-hmm. And the number, if I'm not mistaken, let me look it up. 78 of those people are male and 19 are female. Those are the numbers on the Annenberg USC. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
Sure. And like Joyce say, it's in the numbers and it is in like the data. Like it doesn't lie. They keep on lying to us, but we are not stupid anymore. So.
I mean, we know that that's work, right? That's exactly what Salma Hayek did when she sold Ugly Betty. She went into that room with those executives and there was a bunch of men and she brought out the numbers, she brought out the statistics. And that is ultimately what helped her sell the show. She was right all the way down. And we have to think, guys, we're going into these rooms where people, where they're not creatives. They're money people. They're thinking business first. So we do have to go in there with those numbers. We do have to hit them with the statistics because that's something that they'll easily recognize. They'll easily see and say, yeah, there's a point. There's some correlation here, right? To why we should greenlight this show. And that's the thing is we have to give them every reason to try to greenlight, why to greenlight the show, because they're going to come up with reasons of why not to greenlight.
Exactly.
Somebody said,
can I add something to, yeah. I think you said the actors.
I think it was Patricia Reagan. I think that's the director.
Ah, yes, it is Patricia Reagan.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Linda Mendoza.
No, it is Patricia Reagan.
No, it's Patricia Reagan. Yeah, it just hit me right now. Okay, what were you going to say, Nadine?
I was just going to say for the actors who were saying bankable or whatever, as solutions for actors who are watching this, for anybody who's wanting to uplift or like encourage people so that we can have more of us in the industry, a lot of it is education, right? Yeah. So getting kids in the art programs, making sure that it's not just actors, it's directors, writing programs, master writing programs, seeing if you can contact somebody who's already doing it and interning. Like that's where it's going to be a process, but we need more people. Like it's like, in a body, we need arms, we need a head, we need a foot. So thinking of solutions from that perspective as well and encouraging that to be, supported.
Somebody asked, what do we think about Latinx production companies?
What exactly is the question? Like, what are we?
I see Aida smiling over there, girl. Okay, no.
There's a lot we can say about that. So
there's a lot we can say about that, right? Okay, so here's my view. I know that there are, to be honest with you, I don't really know anybody that has an actual Latino production company that is actually housing.
Just about Latinos?
Creating. Yeah. I don't think it exists. If somebody correct me, if somebody knows on IG, I don't know a production company in Hollywood.
Well, Tripas Production.
Tripas is one.
Tripas is one.
Selma has one.
Selma has one.
Okay, so
I don't know if she's doing, but I don't know if they're doing Latino content though.
Yeah, they are.
This is the thing. There's a difference between having a production company to just serve you as the owner, as the creator, as the actor that will just serve you, and put your projects out there, and actually having a production that's going to serve the community. Right?
Well, Salma's production company is a production company that's not there just to serve her. I mean, Ugly Betty is an example of the stuff that she's done. She sold a lot of projects. Those projects don't go into production, but I have to speak up for her because I know that Salma is also, she's a director and she wants to create content for other people. She's not so concerned with being in front of the camera.
Well, this is the other issue I have with initiatives. There's a lot of initiatives here. There's a lot of organizations here that are Latino. I'm not going to name names. But I have to say, I have not seen inclusion of Caribeños in a lot of these initiatives. I have not seen my people represented in any of these Latino initiatives. And that is a problem, right? When you have Latino organizations that are here and they're supposed to be serving the community and serving the Latinx community, right? To move our projects forward and to move our stories forward, who exactly are you serving? Right? When you are only really immediately including the community that has been in Hollywood and the majority population that occupies Hollywood, right? And we all know that it's the Mexican population, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? But when we're talking about, really including, the greater, the larger scale here when it comes to Latinidad, right? And what that includes. There's so many cultures that I don't see represented. There's so many different people that I don't see represented on these panels, that I can literally sit there and say, oh, she's Puerto Rican, she's Dominican, or hey, she's from Haiti, or she's from Jamaica, she's from the Virgin Islands, she's from the British Islands. Where I can't sit here and say that I've gone to a panel and I've actually seen that type of diversity here in Hollywood in the years that I've been here. And I've only been here 5 years. Some of you have been here longer than me. Okay.
Creating it, girl.
Right. Well, I'm creating it. This is what Caribeñas is about. We're creating our machine, right? So somebody has to do it. We got to do it, right? We have to step up to this plate and say, we're going to create our own platform. So my issue with the Latino companies that are here is that they are not inclusive of other Latin cultures. And we are here, that we're around. Y'all just got to search for us. Y'all got to look for us, put out a call. Okay. But I don't see it. So that is.
I want to make sure that I go on the record of saying, because, Nadine has infected me with her injection of universal positivity. But I'll say, no, I live by, I'm a creature of metaphysics. I believe the universe agrees with a made up mind. Yes, I had a deal with Eugenio Derbez and Tripas for a TV show where I was going to be Puerto Rican. Salma has a production company.
Yes.
Jesse Terrero, who we always tend to overlook, a lot of Latinos do. Because
Gina Rodriguez has one.
Jesse Terrero focuses on storytelling that has to do with people who look like us. He is. Gina has produced a show that Selena's is starring in on Disney Plus.
Yes.
So there are, and Selena's is Dominican. So there are production companies that are creating. But again, we got to remember that the industry is the one that is not allowing the doors to open. And we can open all the production companies that we want.
Right.
If they don't allow the shows to happen, then so here, I'll tell you, Telemundo and Univision, like they want shows with people who look and sound like they do because they believe that that's the demographic that responds to them. And we need the data, and that's why I need to talk to Joy, and I need to talk to Lynette, and I need to get the information.
Take a number.
Yes. You have to, you got to say, these people do show up. Like these people, because Nicky Jam's show on Netflix didn't get any promo.
And it's so good. I was just talking about it the other day.
And people showed up for it, though. People showed up for it.
Really? And get me started with that. Oh my God.
It became undeniable because they didn't promote it. And on Telemundo, it comes on at midnight. So it's like we got to hit them where it hurts. And that is, these people do show up. There's no way J-Lo and Mark Anthony can be these biggest stars when it comes to Puerto Rico, and the island supports them heavily. Yep. They were born in New York. Right. So there's no way you're going to tell me that if you don't create storytelling that includes, and listen, Nicky Jam show, how many times have you seen Black people speaking Spanish on a TV show?
None.
Like Jesse was like, because I talked to him, he was like, yo, I was not having it. I was gonna show all of Puerto Rico.
For sure.
I mean, he shot it in Mexico. There
are two things that we need to cover before we go, because they're asking us questions.
Yeah.
But there's one thing I want to ask to all of you and the people that are watching. What do you guys feel about this new things like Netflix has? ¿Cómo se llama? Con todo?
Con todo Netflix.
Like everything is like Netflix Germany, Netflix Spain, Netflix this, but they don't go in the same umbrella. Do we feel that we need to be like literally segregated like that, or do we need to do something else? Because it feels like we're doing the same thing. Now it's so like Latino con todo. I mean, Netflix con todo, and everything is Latino. You know, is that a problem that we see? And maybe Joy can answer this. I don't know if we're segregating ourselves again. You know, Netflix is making it for us without, you know what I mean? It's like there's a box that they're checking, and every content that comes out is Netflix. I mean, there's like 5 series that are the same, but it's like Germany, Spain, France. Like, is this the right way to go? Like HBO Latino. Like,
I think part of the reason why they're doing that is also because the American experience is very unique to the American experience, right? The American experience is not the same as the experience overseas. So I feel like they do this because it's very unique. It's very different. You know, we have a very different scope here of what our reality is compared to somebody else's reality overseas, you know? So I do understand in that aspect, the programming behind separating certain categories, you know, me personally, I think it's all this, I think it should just all be one fold. You know, I think the reason, if we continue to allow this separation, I feel like it just further pushes that narrative that we are this little alien gang that's over here on the side and we require special attention, or we need to be put in a special box, you know, so you need to put us over here. You know, we can't be included with everybody else. And I think that's kind of defeating the purpose of what we're trying to really do, right? Or the impact that we're really trying to create. So I say no. I say keep it all under the same umbrella, all under the same fold. Let people search and determine, let the audience determine what they want to see. We are now in a place right now where people are very smart, very hip to how Hollywood operates, you know, and how they do certain things. Give the audience the power to choose what they want to see. Don't sit there and have to put it in don't put it in a category for us so that it's like, oh, this is specific programming, you know,
for your community.
I feel like if anything, that sets us up for failure.
I gotta say that I disagree, because if there was a lot of Latino programming in English on Netflix, then I could understand people having to find it. But because you can count on one hand the number of shows that they have that are English speaking, that are about Latinos, I think it's important for people to know that those shows exist. When you include the Spanish market within our Latino market, Spaniards are Europeans who speak Spanish. They are not Latinos. And so I think that we intermix that because people who watch Italian television, German television, watch Spanish television, because those are white people. They're white people who speak Spanish. So that when you commingle that with, there's one Puerto Rican show, One Day at a Time is gone.
But that's not even Puerto Rican, that was Cuban.
No, that was Cuban. Gente Fight is there. With a Dominican, they have one Dominican person on the show, and they have Carlos Santos, who's Puerto Rican, playing Mexican. But I think that is
Julissa, who's Dominican, and I heard
Julissa is Dominican.
Yeah.
But
and
I
Carlos
just think
Spanish.
It's Puerto Rican.
Yeah, Puerto Rican.
And Francisco is Venezolano. So I don't know. Con Todo has never promoted me on Tiffany's thing. Had it not been for Black media and mainstream media, I would not get any.
It's interesting.
Any press. Con Todo has never included me. I'm the only Puerto Rican doing stand-up on Netflix. And I think that they're not even doing a good job at that, you know, at telling people here are our people. But I just think it's important for them not to frame us as being other than that. But I do think people need to be aware of it, because Netflix is overwhelming. It's like, it's not what it used to be before. There's so much on Netflix now. I can't even, sometimes I can't look beyond the top 10. Like, I'm just like, oh my good. Now they got documentaries about documentaries. Like, you know, they have so much stuff going on that there's a Black section on Netflix. And I think that you go there, you get a chance to see some of the good shows. And I think people need to see a reflection of themselves. But when you throw them into the sea, people get turned off and they're like, you know what, there ain't nothing on there for me. So I don't think it hurts to market shows to the people that you create them for, because I think it's important for us to know that those shows exist. And that Nicky Jam show, they didn't do it. They didn't tell nobody.
You can do the same thing by actually.
They didn't tell nobody, but we
Exactly.
discovered it. We found it, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Is
they only promote 2 weeks before a show comes out. That's the Netflix model. It doesn't matter if you black, brown, white, whatever. They say 2 weeks. They put the billboards up, and then they're done. They move on to the next thing because you live on that digital platform.
But there's too many content. There's so much content. They have to do that, because if not, forget it. How do you do it?
I want to know where there's a Puerto Rican show, or where there's a show with black people, or where there's a show. I want to know, because I want to be able to see it, because I go to Netflix and I see 3 reality shows about horrible dating experiences right in my face. And so I'm like, okay, they got a show about some families. They got a show about some people, couples. I think it's so inundated. I think it's important for people to know that we're there.
So somebody asked, because we haven't talked about this, and they keep talking about it on the,
yeah, I'm trying to also go ahead with the
so they were talking about, I'm hearing you speak from a very American perspective, and we must remember that our shows do have a global audience. Netflix in Spain is streaming Gentefied. So domestic and international market, can we address that? And then Joy answered, 82% of the media consumers comes from the U.S.
Consumed. 82% of all the media consumed in the world.
So let's talk about that, domestic versus international. And you were saying, Joy, in the chat, if you want to expand on that, and we can keep on talking.
Well, I mean, that was just one reason why I was particularly citing what America's hiccups have been around storytelling, right? Because I mean, our stories shape our beliefs, and our beliefs shape our reality, right? It's so the stories that America imports, or exports in particular, have a global effect, because America has been such a global player in the sense of the media that gets consumed around the world, how people think that stories are supposed to be told, how people think movies are supposed to look, how people think casting is supposed to go, how people think the characters are supposed to dress, how people think the scenarios are supposed to be set up. There is, you can look around the world and you can definitely see that there has definitely been a very, American exported sense of culture. I mean, even if you look at just Black culture and the way that hip hop rap went around the world, and Black music has always gone around the world. It's so this culture and our storytelling is consumed globally. It is a global phenomenon. Okay,
By the way, Sylvia Robinson, she's the mother of hip hop. She's half. Her father's from St. Thomas. Just putting that out there. Okay. Okay. I mean, and there's a lot of Caribbean stories in terms of American history and music history and television and everything else. I love Hazel Scott. Hazel Scott was actually Trinidadian artist, and she was the first Black woman to have a TV show, a TV talk show in the United States. So it is a uniquely American thing about the way that the stories are being told. I'm not trying to ignore things like Nollywood and Bollywood and all those other things. I'm just saying that America has been in a unique position to export whatever kind of stuff it wants to put on the screen, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to the entire world in a way that a lot of other places have not been consumed globally like that. And so it is a unique position of power, and I think with that also a unique position of responsibility and accountability and questions that we need to ask ourselves in self-examination. And I think that this is one reason in particular why it is so vital for us to really helm a charge on inclusion and equity where storytelling is concerned, because again, America is not unique. You can go to India right now. You find that there's so many more languages that are spoken. There's a colorism problem there. Colorism is not just a Black thing or a Latina thing. It is a global thing. Asian people have colorism problems. Colorism is around the world. Okay, that is a big thing. And so I think the real thing with the domestic versus international is when distributors try to tell people that the story won't distribute, right?
Like when you see, what was that memo that came out of I think it was amongst all the Amy Pascal memos.
Yes, Amy Pascal.
Yeah, where they were saying that Denzel doesn't have appeal in China or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chinese people aren't going to see a movie that stars Denzel because he's black. Come on. Really?
Chinese people also don't watch Star Wars, by the way. They don't like Star Wars, which is weird.
Right. You know, I mean, it's just, okay, we have, you know, these domestic versus international conversations. And that's really, to go back to, I know bankable was part of the beginning conversation, but that's sometimes the times when I've been in a room and they've been talking about bankable. What they really mean is, can it distribute overseas? Can this person, this face, can this body get an audience overseas? Will it only work in the US? If we go to China, will they want to see this person? You know, like, will they feel like this person is relatable? And that's kind of, you know, like where some of those questions of bankability come into play, you know. But yes, of course, like we definitely want to be thinking about international, not just domestic, because that's more money, you know.
Actually, that's exactly right. If you are a creator, think globally, because that's where the money comes. Like, for real, that is ding, ding, ding. You have
I think again, like the Black Panther as a case study shows, it works globally.
Yep.
Okay. For a long time, they just did not believe that a Black superhero was going to translate globally. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Black Panther translated globally. So it's just, you know, yeah, you're constantly going to be dealing with fear, but I mean, you do your best to work through it, and some things you'll win and some things you won't. But you just go show, like, there's always an audience, and it's a lot of times a matter of cultivating. It's a matter of these stories going ahead and being distributed, you know, like keep finding audience. Even when I look at something like K-pop, if K-pop can be a global phenomenon.
Well, talking about international and domestic, we just keep forgetting, and we haven't talked about this. Parasite won Best Picture and Best Foreign Language Picture. And that story was a universal story. We know what like low classes and high class, we know rich people and like not rich people. We know it kind of turned everything upside down. So, and it had subtitles, but it was a universal story that everybody can understand and can gel with. Also, what works here might not work in the international oh my God, market. Thank you. International market. There, like, I remember pitching a story about a Oaxacan detective to a Mexican studio, and the IG went out again. Just, you know, okay. To a Mexican studio, and they loved the idea. And what they said was, well, she's from Oaxaca, and she's a detective. I mean, her heritage is Oaxacan, but she lives in LA, right? And the Mexican studio said, if we make her, which she can still be Mexican, but we have to change that she's not from the LAPD. We have to make her the Interpol. Right. And once you tack on that, then it becomes an international story. And it was interesting because we didn't think about this. It's like, how can we appeal? How this story can go out there was just change that. Don't make it such a niche that it's just LA. Make it an Interpol. Right. And those stories happens every day.
Julia, do you have anything to add to that?
Well,
as far as the international market goes,
it's about creating stories that are going to be universal. And I think that it goes back to what Nadine was saying, is just speaking from the heart and creating those stories that are authentic. You know, eventually they're going to resonate regardless of language, right? I think if it comes from the heart and it's authentic and well made, right? The story, again, talking about to what you were saying, the production value of it. So
okay, so I know that we're at 6 o'clock, so I just kind of want to go around and just one last thought on from everybody on, you know, what is the content we want to watch, right? And I think that, again, right now we're in a place of crisis, and crisis brings innovation, you know, and I think with innovation is also reinvention. So if we talk about that and we say, okay, is this our time to abandon our old ways of thinking and reinvent ourselves? And if we are to try to create some type of change, what is one piece of advice or one thing that you would want to impart to everybody that's watching, to be able to create this change that we all want to see, obviously, you know? So, Lynette, I'll start with you.
Oh, gee, I'm like still thinking.
Okay.
Well, I do think you were talking about the pandemic. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but it has been the most creative moment in my life. Mm-hmm. And it's like going inwards and analyzing myself and what I'm leaving out in the universe, because it's such an intense moment that you go, it's life or death, seriously. And I feel like it's bringing the best and the worst in people. And going back to the LA Times article, I feel like you just said it, crisis bring innovation. And if we kind of tune out the noise of the negative media and all the negativity that's happening, you can literally create and change this world. And I don't think we should stay in a cage, and we have to go against the status quo all the time without fear. Believe in yourself and tell the story that you want to tell, because there are people out there that want to hear about you, creators, producers, writers, actors, all of us. We can't just keep on. It's like if somebody tells you you're ugly all the time, you're going to start believing you're ugly. But if you change your mind and train your mind not to think that, you step away from it. So we can perpetuate this sense of fear that they're trying to instill in us still. So it's just literally be yourself and stop thinking that it's not possible, because this is the moment. I feel it is our moment to shine and to take control of our stories, our industry. We see it in social media all the time. Now, all of a sudden, we see the reality of, like, we were talking the other day about famous people, and they're coming out on Instagram with their canas, you know, white hair and all this stuff. And we're seeing the veil, like we're all people. So if we start thinking like that I'm not less than you because I'm still haven't made it, what does that even mean? Mm-hmm. So it's just really like, stay true to yourself and love yourself and write that story that's in you. And if this pandemic made you like come out with a story, tell it, and don't wait for anybody to do it. There's like Instagram, there's TikTok, there's so many places that you can start this, that you don't have to wait for somebody to say yes anymore.
There's asking for permission.
There's no permission at all. And like now more than ever, because people are at home watching. So if you want to start a movie from your house, and like make a short film where you're stalking your house because there was an earthquake, and like ask your friend to have a camera on the other side, and like get an editor. But like don't stop, because they're telling us that our stories are not gonna be told. And like just keep being fierce.
Thank you. Aida?
So I agree with that. I will say this. I come from a different space because I'm a stand-up comedian. So I operate in my authenticity daily. I have to make a transition to acting because I have to perfect being myself every day on stage. I live by some mantras, and I think that I take them everywhere I go with me. I always say, go as you, because you are going to eventually show up anyway. Mm-hmm. And it is, you can do your greatest impression of what you think a celebrity is, your greatest impression of what a starlet is, your greatest impression of what a hot girl is, or the actor is. This is an era of authenticity. What people are responding to is what's real. And if you pay attention to the Issa Raes, and the people fell in love with Gina Rodriguez because Gina Rodriguez went up there and talked about her father, and she said, I can and I will. Like, if you pay attention to, you know, the Mindy Kalins, like people, she's not a size 2, you know, it's not where we were 20 years ago. These generation Z's and all the names and all the labels, that these people are saying, you can no longer put us in a box. We don't have to tolerate what you tolerated. You're not going to call us a name that you want to call us. This is who we are. We have our own labels, our own identities. They are responding to what is real, what is authentic. And if you watch what's successful right now, that's what it is. I've been in this game for 20 years and I've been told over and over again to stop being me so that I can get what I want. And it's only being me that has gotten me what I want. And I don't have to, I don't have to pop my collar on anybody. I don't know of any other women who have specials on Netflix, Showtime, and HBO. I wrote and sold 2 shows in the last 6 months because they're real and they're about stories of people who get up every day and go to work, because everybody doesn't have red bottoms. Everybody doesn't have designer dogs. Most people are going to work every day and they're pushing back on this because they want to see themselves. So be your most authentic self and bank on that, because the people who you need to be in front of, your gifts will make room for you and bring you before the great ones. And I believe that. I got to go because I got to go get on a Zoom for a TV show that I'm doing for TBS, and I'm doing really bad on it. So I have to go because I have to tape everything from my own house. But I love every single one of you.
Aida.
And I'm so proud to be.
I'm so proud of you. And
I'm proud of you. And I'm waiting to, I can't wait to see you. You too. And I'm excited for you. And I want to work with everybody here. And Joy, you will hear from me.
Aida, thank you so much for being part of this platform.
Anytime. I love y'all.
Love you, Aida.
So we're going around. But Joy, you're the next box. So we're going to go to you. We'll go down. So Julia, you, and then I'll go back up.
No, I think that I echo both what Lynette said and what Aida. I think it's about, maintaining our authentic selves. I think it's about being active, bring action to what we want to do, not let's just talk about it, but do it. I think it's also important to educate ourselves. I think that's really, really important, staying abreast of what our craft and who we are and what we are as professionals, and just have the passion, just go out there and align yourselves with amazing people like you women. I'm sure going to be keeping contact with all of you, and I'm going to support you and I'm going to follow you, because I think that you are all doing incredible work. And these are the people that I want to be around. So continue doing that. And that's what I would say in terms of solution. Just work on yourself, work on your craft, stay abreast of what's out there in terms of like the education, the data, the craft, and support others. And support our stories.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Nadine?
Be brave. Just be brave in whatever, the world is worlding. So what side of the world are you going to stand in? And be brave enough to do the work, to take yourself on, to not be discouraged, and to keep going forward. And of course, building a community that really, truly is supportive, not manipulative, not to have your own, but like truly me to we, like help yourself so that you can ultimately help others.
Joy, let's just bring all the joy.
I love what everyone has said, and I'm just going to end with a reminder that our stories don't have to be rooted in trauma.
Yes.
You don't want to put your story in trauma.
Amen.
You don't have to.
Yes.
Our characters do not have to have their value measured by how much trauma they can endure. So don't feel like you have to write a character that looks like you, that can just be a pack mule for trauma. If you want to write about friends, you want to write about buying a house in Tuscany, you want to write about Eat, Pray, Loving through India, you can do that. You can do that too. You want to write a movie about someone trying to write a script for a movie, you can do that. Okay. You want to write a movie about someone trying to write a collection of poetry or trying to write some songs, you can do that. It does not have to be rooted in trauma. It can be rooted in joy. It can be about how the character finds joy and love within themselves and outside in a benevolent community, as well as with romance. It can be all of that. So you do not have to root your story in trauma.
That's the whole word. Well, I'll end it with standing in your power, believing in your power, and having faith that whatever you put out to the world, as long as it's authentic and it's coming from a real place, it's going to land where it needs to land. And also, don't be scared. You know, I feel like there is no fear here. You know, we're not in a place of fear anymore. There is nothing to be scared of. There is so many possibilities now. There's so many outlets for your work to be out there. And I think also most importantly is reach out to people that you usually don't reach out to. You know, try to build those connections with people that normally aren't in your circle. Because I feel like that's how you really build community. That's how we really start to build bridges. And that's where the real change starts to happen. When you step outside of your box and you step out of your circle, you step out of your clique, to really start trying to make connections with other people. And that's it. So
also, before we go, I want to thank you, Marilyn, because there is a need in this industry for a group of Caribeña women, because we feel invisible. I mean, I'm from Puerto Rico. I just recently came out of the closet. Like we say, I always said in castings that I was half Mexican, half Puerto Rican. I don't say that anymore. So, because I don't need to. So thank you for opening the space for this new era. And we're all supporting you. And we're all in this together. So let's continue doing this. And for actors out there, don't change who you are. That whole bullshit of your accent. Someone will love you at some point. I have an accent. I don't care about it. Raul Julia had an accent and he freaking did Shakespeare and won, you know, and did a lot of stuff. So thank you, Marilyn, for having a space.
Very cute with that accent, by the way.
thank you. I believe Black and brown, this is our time to unite, period. Black and brown power all the way.
It was an honor to be here with you, ladies. Please, I want to know you guys in person. So those that I don't, thank you so much for your.
This is great. And I want to thank our audience. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Know that we're going to continue bringing you these live conversations, these very real conversations, and they're going to have solutions at the end. We're not just here sounding off and complaining, right? We're really dissecting these issues and trying to come up with real viable solutions. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and just know that we got another Let's Unpack coming very soon. So thank you, girls. All right. Well, I'll be in contact soon. Okay.
Thank you to our sound person that's behind.
And thank you to Yadi. Yes, Yadi working all the behind the scenes right now.
Yadi, thank you.
Yadi.
Thank you. Okay, ladies, we'll be in contact soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
I just want to say, I bought
Oh.
your book. Yes, I bought your book. I got it today.
Yes.
Wait, this is your book?
Yes.
my book.
Yes, honey. Yes.
Why are you blowing my mind?
We all need to pick up that book. I will definitely be putting it on my Amazon list, honey. So yes. Shout out to you.
Congratulations. Why didn't you bring this up before?
Congrats.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I brought it out at the beginning. I said that she was an author. Oh no, the book. Yes.
The book, yeah.
Brought it out. Yes.
Well, I bought it because, you know, I looked you guys up and wanted to support. I think that, you know, it's important to walk the talk, right? So I was like, this sounds
We should post that in our history, like stories, so that people know about your book.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Please. But girl, you got to put it out there.
The thing is that I wanted to ask you all too. I don't know if we're still live, but
We are.
Oh, we are.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
we're not. Sorry.
No, we're not.
Facebook is.
Good.
Facebook is.
Yeah,
No, that's good. That's
So
good.
maybe you want me to?
I was
you want us to be live,
wondering-
or you want me to go off?
Live in
It's like,
Facebook, you're going to say something.
Julia, I know that you're in New York right now,
Yes,
but
I'm in New York.
I know that you come to LA like, or before you were coming to LA fairly often, right?
Yes.
Do you all work with Mount St. Mary's University?
No.
Oh. Why?
Are you aware of Mount St. Mary's University?
No.
Mount St. Mary's University, number one, is the only all-female university in Los Angeles. It's got campuses at USC and UCLA, but it's also a Hispanic-serving institution. 80% of the student population is Latinas.
Wow.
And
are you
they
writing
have-
this down?
I'm writing it down.
and they have a film department. They have a film department as well as a soundstage at Sunset Gower.
Wow.
And my partner, Dr. Nicole Haggard at C.I.M.E, she actually teaches in the film media and social justice department at Mount St. Mary's University. I've guest lectured there several times. And
great.
I am constantly, I did not go to Mount St. Mary's. I went to William and Mary in Virginia. But when I found out what they were doing and I saw those girls, I was like, I need more of Hollywood, Black and brown Hollywood in particular, to be showing up for these girls. So I'm constantly looking for allies that want to come talk to them. They need to see, they need to hear stories. They need to hear about how you got through, how you persevered, how you stay centered, how you keep your joy, how you stay creative, all of that stuff. And I mean, they are absolutely amazing and just so smart, brilliant. They're going to be having jobs in the industry that we don't even know about yet. Like there are not names for them yet, because the way they're going to be combining technology and storytelling and everything. And so I'm constantly looking for the people that want to be in a line.
I'm down.
I mean, I am a true believer that you pass it down to a next generation by bringing them and mentoring them. And, you know, I, like many of us, right, we didn't see we didn't see ourselves represented. And for me, mentorship is important. The 100 Hispanic Women of Westchester, that's exactly what it is. We mentor young women. We give out scholarships to young women who are aspiring to go to get a higher education. And so I would love to work.
Me too. I'm down.
Joy, you already know you're part of the team. You in.
Okay. So like we, you
like,
know,
I'm
like
snatching you up. Like I'm snatching you up, just so you know.
Like, please do, okay? Because I mean, it's real in these streets.
You get snatched, girl. You get out of snatched.
And like I said, there's so many amazing things going on. And you know, like I found out more about Mount St. Mary's University because I became part of a cohort of 50 women dedicated to gender parity and media entertainment. Yeah. And like we held all of our meetings for the cohort at Mount St. Mary's. So I got to know them better. I've spoken there several times. I know the women who are involved in the Advancement Center, like I said, the Film, Media, Social Justice Department, and they need more people to show up. It doesn't have a lot of funding as an institution, so a lot of people don't know about them per se, but they have a thriving film department, and these girls are brilliant.
Mm-hmm. I'm down anytime.
Yeah. Okay. I'll reach out. So listen, we're going to be figuring out more stuff to, you know, do together. And meanwhile, like, let's talk more about the data and everything else. Because
we will. We're going to I think we'll set up a separate meeting. So
I have a whole like deck of it.
We'll set up a whole meeting for that. Because I think it's important to, like, we need to put that information in a certain file. Like, we need to file that information so it's easily accessible when we're in these situations for pitching or whatever the case is. And we know that those numbers are there and that can actually help us sell whatever projects that we're putting on the table. So I think it's important to have that information congregated in a special place, and it needs to be constantly updated. So
I mean, that's one of the things we're working on. We've got to raise money for it, you know, but we are looking to have like an active database that the creative community can use, as well as something that we're calling like a humanities exchange. Like, you know, if you want to do a space movie, you can go to the Science and Technologies Exchange and they will hook you up with JPL. So you want to set up something like that, where if you're like what Aida was talking about when she said, you know, Rami was like, I need someone to come on and consult this, that we'll be able to be like, oh, look, here's a list of academics that can come on and consult. They've been doing this type of research. They have this type of, you know, insight, and they can help you in the writer's room with what, you know, you're trying to accomplish.
Also, distributors are important. We keep forgetting, like, people forget about that, but they do have numbers and they know exactly what they're looking for and why and all those things. Even though it's recording, I won't say it out loud. We can say it later. Of distributors, but they still do have the numbers, and they can tell us, and we can include that too. And, you know, I have people in that side of the industry that can come in and talk about that in more details.
Okay.
Thank you all. I'm so much more energized. You got to know where your refueling stations are, you know.
Trust me, Joy, we've all been feeling that pain over this past day. I was up till 4 a.m. Like, I couldn't sleep. Like, that whole
none of us did.
It ripped my heart out. And I get emotional just thinking about it. But I mean, this is a very interesting time that we're in. But again, as creators, it is our job to witness this and tell it, you know. So
also to do something, because like it's amazing how people are coming out and saying, of all colors, I saw the news, not just Black people coming out. It's like everyone is tired of this. And this is the time to go for reals.
Exactly.
It's now or never.
That's why I said forward always.
Forward. And the universe did that on its own. Like they paused this so that we can see each other. I really do believe that.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And really be present.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, girls. I'm gonna wrap this up.
Lynette, I'm so excited. Can't wait to connect with you again. Joy the same thing. And Marilyn, you and I have a few things on the works. And thank you so much for creating this platform. I'm so excited.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
More to come. Thank you so much. That was so awesome. So fun.
Okay. Well, have a good night, girls, and we'll be all in contact very soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.